Hey there, folks. It is Syra. Welcome back. For those of you I am a homeschooling, unschooling, fostering mom of currently 5. Um, for those of you who caught my last video, you know that I discussed the possibility of my family reopening our home to take in another foster placement. And in that video, I mentioned that there was one thing that sort of needed to be resolved before we could reopen our house. But I couldn't talk about it at the time. So that video, I actually made it about 3 weeks ago. And alhamdulillah, I can talk about the issue that I couldn't mention at the time. I'm sure you can tell by the title of this video that my family had an allegation made against us. In the world of foster care, in the world of CPS, allegations are very, very common. And one of the things that our agency actually told us in the training was that it wasn't really a question of if, it was a question of when. That most foster homes have allegations made against them at some point in time for a number of different reasons. And again, those are allegations that are then, what essentially happens is an allegation is made by somebody, and then CPS or DFPS or somebody in the government, is somebody in some government agency, I'm not 100% sure actually, they come out and they do an investigation. And then once they do an investigation, that allegation is either substantiated or, I guess, unsubstantiated. So we were under the impression in our training that in all likelihood, we would get an allegation against us. Now, I debated whether or not I really wanted to share this with you all. But I think it's important to share it because it's a part of our journey. I think talking about a thing reduces the shame of a thing. And also, I think it's important mostly because of the mistakes that I made. And the main mistake that I made was I thought I am going to be the most perfect foster parent. And I am not going to leave any room for anybody to make an allegation against us anywhere. And the mistake that I made was that is just sheer arrogance. It's just complete arrogance to think that you have control over the outcomes of your life like that. And also to think that only guilty people suffer certain consequences and innocent people do not suffer those same consequences. That is just an arrogance. To think that just because you don't do anything wrong, there will never be a strike against you. Or another way of saying that is that if you do all the right things, then everything will work out. I remember the first time my heart really shook when I listened to the story of people who were in these war-torn conditions overseas. And I remember there was a documentary, and in the documentary, there was a gentleman. I must have been around 35, 36 years old, and he was around 35 years old. And in the documentary, he was saying, he was speaking to the camera, and he said, I did everything right. I went to school, I became an engineer, I got married, I had X number of children, and I remember his children were very similar in age and number to my own. And there he stood, and he had lost his children, he had lost his wife. He was sort of surrounded by all of this destruction. And I thought to myself, there is no difference between him and I. He did all of the same things that I did, that I tell myself are the reason that my life has worked out the way that it has. And that's not true. Your life unfolds the way that it unfolds purely by the grace of Allah, for no other reason. Yes, you tie your camel. Yes, you do the thing. You plant the seed. But the truth is, you can do all of the right things. And if Allah doesn't will something to happen in your life, it will not happen. And if Allah does will for something to happen in your life, there's nothing that you can do to avoid it. And to think otherwise is just foolishness and arrogance on your part. So the main lesson of the day is you can do all of the right things, which is what I fooled myself into thinking I was doing. I was doing all of the right things. It's not going to save you in the end. Only Allah can save you. Okay, all of that being said, now we're 6 minutes in. Let me tell you the story of what happened. One day, in the morning, it was like around 9:30. It was, the kids had woken up. I had given everybody their milk, their breakfast, whatever. I had just put the baby down for a nap, for her first nap. And the doorbell rang. Now, pre-fostering, I never answered my door. I never picked up my phone. Before I started fostering, it was like, if you're not leaving me a message to let me know that you're going to call or you're going to come, I don't need to, there's nobody who I know personally who's going to be ringing my doorbell out of the blue. And nobody, people should not be calling me without texting me first. Let's just say that. But I foster now. And so I get phone calls all the time and I get visitors all the time, sometimes knowingly and sometimes not knowingly, sometimes surprise visits. So the doorbell rang. I went to the door to see who it was, and there was 2 women standing at the door. And I could just tell by the way that they were standing that it was something related to fostering. So I went and I grabbed my hijab and I threw it on and I opened the door. And I don't remember exactly what they said, but I just remember that their demeanor was very solemn, very serious, very straight-faced. And of course, I'm just going to be the best foster parent ever. I'm just going to win everybody over all the time. And so I immediately welcomed them into my house. I had no idea what they were there for. And I even made a joke to them, oh, this is a different kind of visit, because I was like, this is a different kind of visit. I've never had a visit like this. What is this about? I don't really know. And they never really, I didn't really ask. I was just like, oh, okay, you're here on behalf of CPS. Okay, do you need to see? I mean, there's like the typical tour that everybody who comes in the house has to see. There's certain things that they check for. Our medications are locked up, our fire extinguishers are there. They check the baby's crib to make sure that there's safe sleep going on and there's nothing in the crib. Those kinds of things. So immediately they said yes. So I started taking these complete strangers around my house and showing them all the things that people normally see. They were saying some things, and I gotta be honest, I didn't really fully understand things that they were saying. There was so much generic verbiage coming out of their mouth. I tried to remember the words that they said later and to write them down. But they were just giving me these sort of, you know, generic phrases and statements. After we did the tour of the house, we went into a room. They both got their laptops open, and then they started asking me a series of questions. And they never really came out. They never outright came out and said this was an investigation. Um, they never really came out and said there was an allegation made against your home. These were words that were never said. Um, but I very slowly picked up on the fact that that was what was happening. Um, so they asked me a series of questions. I asked the questions, still making jokes, mind you, still trying to make small talk and to lighten the air that was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Um, and there was a lot of awkward silences as they were, typing, into their laptops. Um, they did ask me, what did they ask me? Okay, so they did ask me if they could get permission to speak to my bigs. Now, I believe my older two at this point had already turned 18, I believe. So they were already adults. So they actually technically did not need my permission to speak to the two eldest. They did ask permission. I mean, I did give them permission to speak to my other son, who's 14. Although I did not know at the time what that would entail. But I thought to myself, we have nothing to hide. We've not done anything wrong. Again, all very foolish and arrogant things to think. As if your innocence is what will save you. um, but, I came to the table sort of with an open heart, so to speak. And I answered the questions honestly. They spoke to my daughter afterwards, and they did end up speaking to her for about 20 minutes. The interesting thing was they were not that concerned about the baby, which, if there's an allegation into the home, I would think that the number one priority would have been the baby and the baby's safety. But they didn't really seem to care that much about the baby. I did pick her up from the nap because I realized pretty quickly that this was an investigation. And so I wanted them to see that she was fine and that she was okay. Now, some of you might be wondering, what kinds of things are allegations made for? And there could be allegations made against foster parents for literally anything. It could be any kind of abuse, but it could also be, things like, negligent care, or not providing them with enough clothing, not giving them enough to eat, treating them differently than you treat your biological children. What else could it be? It could be anything in the house. It could be allegations against safe sleep. It could be, I don't know, something dangerous in your home. There's really just a number of things that an allegation could be made about. In the course of talking to them, they did let me know that in the sequence, or on the scale of allegations, that this was one of the lower level allegations. So they did say that. But they were not clear about what the allegation was really regarding. So I didn't really know. And before they left, they actually showed me their laptop screens, and because I had to sign some things. And when they showed me their laptop, they actually showed me the verbiage of what the allegations were. And I can tell you, I'm not an unintelligent person. I do hold a doctorate degree. I had no idea what that allegation was about. I had no idea what it meant. It just was gibberish. It just was like nonsensical words kind of strung together. I'm sure it has meaning to them in their department, but for all practical purposes, it was so ambiguous and unclear. I had no idea what the allegation was about. The other thing about allegations is that you don't know who makes the allegations. And actually, I didn't know it at the time. Okay, we'll put a pin in that conversation about who makes the allegations because I want to talk about that as well. That was a really important part of the lessons that I learned. Um, okay, so I'm recording this in the evening, and I normally record at this park by my house in the daytime. And there's like those of you who know me well, I don't like being seen recording myself publicly. And there's like a group. I'm not going to look directly at them, but there's a group of like 30 teenagers directly to my right. I think there's a pool here, so I think they're all going swimming, but right now they're just hanging out in the parking lot, and I'm sure they're all looking at me, and I just want to kill myself right now. Okay, but anyways. Um, okay, where was I? Okay, so the allegation was question mark, question mark. I have no idea. So they spoke to my daughter. They didn't really seem that interested in the baby. They kind of wrapped up with me. And during the time that they were speaking to my daughter, my husband actually left with my boys. One of my sons got dropped off at work. The other got taken to his school. Now, technically, his school, he's a freshman. Technically, his school is like a local university because he's taking a course there as a dual credit. Like all of his classes are dual credit classes. So technically, his school was a university campus, but it was still a school, and he's just 14 years old. Okay, they're getting closer. I don't know what's happening here, but they're getting closer to me. Um, when they left, they informed me that they were going to have to speak to the rest of the family. I was kind of, confused as to why they didn't sort of figure out who they needed to speak to because they were at our house for a really long time. All the little kids are leaving the pool now. It's a lot of activity going on, and everybody is watching me record myself in my car. Good times, good times. All right. They were at my house for quite some time. I want to say about an hour. And during that time, they did not, I let them know because during that time, I had to get the boys up. I had to get them, to get up and get dressed. So, I mean, there was like activity going on while they were doing their investigation. They were not very quick. And so they didn't interview my husband, even though my husband was home. They didn't interview the boys, even though the boys were home. An hour after they were there, my husband took the boys and they kind of wrapped up and they let me know that they needed to speak to the boys still and my husband. I gave them my husband's number. I was like, here's his number. Good luck getting in contact with my boys. My kids don't really carry cell phones. They have like a communal cell phone. Good luck with that, ladies. They ended up getting in contact with my husband and meeting my husband at the campus and speaking to him there face to face. After that, they waited until my son was done with his class, and then they basically spoke to him outside of his class. It was surprising how much urgency there was in all of this, especially considering that it was what they would term like a low-level investigation. It was really scary. It was scary because the thing about the thing about an allegation is that you do not have custody of these children. The Department of Family and Protective Services, DFPS in Texas, or CPS, whatever your state CPS is, they actually are the ones that have temporary custody of the children, which means that they can remove the children from your home at any time for any reason. So even if an um, an allegation is found to be unsubstantiated, they can still remove the child. They can remove the child during the investigation if they so choose. They didn't do that here, but I wasn't sure if they were not if I wasn't sure if they were going to do that. And that kind of stuff happens all the time. It happens all the time. Most of the time, when the child is removed from the house, the child is not returned back, because to remove a child, to move a child is a form of trauma, and even if the allegation is unsubstantiated, they're all just like playing volleyball here in front of me in the parking lot, but it's all good now. We're like besties. We're all comfortable. They know what's going on. I got a selfie stick. Even if an allegation is found unsubstantiated, if a child is removed, in all likelihood, that child will not be moved back. So at this point in time, I wasn't sure what was going to happen. I wasn't sure if they were going to remove the baby from our home. I just wasn't sure what was going to happen. And at this point in time, I wasn't sure if the allegation was going to be substantiated or not. I didn't even know what the allegation was. Okay, so they interviewed everybody. I remember being in the store later that day, and, we have a camera, like a doorbell camera. We don't have the Ring, but we have like a doorbell camera. And we get a notification if something comes, like on our porch. I remember being in the store later that day and the notification going off on my phone that somebody was at the door. And I started to have so much anxiety just from what had happened earlier that day. I was really surprised at how much anxiety this whole situation produced, but it was really quite scary for me. I went over with every member of my family like a dozen times what all they were asked, how they responded, how they answered. And I just worried about it a lot. Um, I wanted to go back to that topic of who makes the allegation. So initially I thought this is a family member of the placement that I have. They must have made the allegation. But in this particular case, I have not met they're getting picked up by their parents. Oh, that's what's going on. Okay, great. There's like a mom here with a big SUV and she's picking up all the kids. Okay. I hope nobody's in the video. Oh, they're like such sweet looking high school kids. Oh, they're so sweet looking. I'm a bad person. Okay. Just always assuming bad things. Assuming all kids are hoodlums and they all look like sweet, nice kids playing volleyball in a parking lot. What was I saying? Okay, so, who makes the allegation? Okay, so I'm like embarrassed to admit this, but again, I want the lesson to be learned. I want to share the lesson that I learned. Immediately, what goes to your mind is who made this allegation against us, and you immediately start going through all of the possibilities of people that could make the allegation. And in our situation, it's literally nobody. There is nobody that could have made this allegation. There's nobody that, our family comes in contact with or who comes inside of our house. A I spoke to everybody that I knew. I spoke to all the foster parents that I knew. I spoke to several attorney friends, particularly one who does a lot of work with CPS. She actually reached out to a friend of hers who deals much more frequently with these types of things, like these types of allegations. Um, and, much like we're very connected, we know a lot of people. So we got a lot of information very quickly. And one of the things that, you know, two of the attorney friends that I went to that they mentioned was maybe it was a neighbor. Now, you know, not to generalize, but our neighborhood is like full of East Asian empty nesters. They are not calling CPS. There is nobody in our neighborhood, first of all, that knows that we're fostering, but second of all, that is calling any kind of authorities for any reason whatsoever. It's not that kind of vibe in our neighborhood. We live in a very, very, very small neighborhood. And they're all like elderly. I think my kids are like the only kids in the neighborhood. But anyway, so I was like, there's no way that it's a neighbor. Um, Through process of elimination, the only people that were left were people in our community, like the Muslim community. And when I got to that point, I was like, I don't want to think about it anymore. I don't want to question. I don't want to, delve into this. I don't want to guess. I don't want to try to figure it out. This whole pool of speculation gave me such a ick feeling. And I just sort of felt like this is like Shaitan's playground, like making us question and wonder, who who tried to do us in this way. I was like, no, I'm not interested in this. And so when we sort of started going through that process of elimination, um, I, that was sort of like where the line was drawn, where I was like, I'm done. I don't want to think about it anymore. There are things that, you know, there's areas in our life where we can speculate, um, but we don't know for certain. And speculation is just like Shaitan's playground, and there's just no need to play in that playground. Um, so I don't know who made the allegation, and to be honest, it's good that I don't know who made the allegation, because the truth is, a- making an allegation and that process is a really important process, and it needs to remain anonymous, even though it was a process that led my family through a lot of hardship and a lot of anxiety and a lot of unease. And even though in my family situation it was unwarranted, the truth is that there are situations where something is happening and people do need to make an allegation and just make sure that there is safety. And it's important for the whole process to remain anonymous so that people feel comfortable coming forward. Um, okay, so they did tell me when they left that the allegation normally takes 45 days. Like the report normally takes 45 days to come out. But in our situation, they were going to try their best to get it done in 30. Um, I did, once it happened, y'all know me. I'm like, I talked to everybody about it. I talked to my agency case manager. I brought it up with CPS. She didn't really say anything. And then my attorney friend later told me she knows, she knows exactly who made the allegation. She knows all of the details, but she can't talk about it with you because she could lose her job. So, again, I tried to make light of the situation, or not make light, but I tried to lighten the mood of the situation. I did talk to my case worker about it, and I was making jokes. But truthfully, it was something that I was very stressed out about. And again, she didn't really engage too much in that conversation, um, which is good because I don't want her to get in any kind of trouble for that whatsoever. Um, and then we just kind of had to wait. It was sort of this pending dark cloud over us. Um, and it was one of those situations where you just put your trust in Allah and you give this problem to Allah because there's nothing else to be done. There's nothing else that you can do. So you give this problem to Allah and you just tell Allah, take care of this. Um, take care of this, put goodness in this for us. Um, and during that time, somehow all of this just sort of stripped away all of the stuff surrounding why we're doing this. And it really made me kind of peel the layers back, about why we're really doing this. And the truth is that this is a sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. This is, I want to be with the Prophet ﷺ in Jannah, and I want to, you know, be written as, a person who took care of the orphans. That's what I want. I want this for my akhirah, pure and simple. And you go through all of these like logistics when it comes to having kids, like how many you should have and how hard it will it be and how much it will impact your life and all of these thoughts that sort of revolve around like me, 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 me. And these are all, to be fair, really important thoughts to have. These are really important conversations to have. But at the end of the day, this is the deed that I want to do to get me into Jannah, plain and simple. And when this was happening, I'm gonna get emotional. An allegation is basically like somebody accusing you of doing something wrong, right? It's like the story of Yusuf al-Islam, right? You've been accused of something, and until it's cleared, until it's like cleared up, you sort of have like this X on you, and even like telling friends like what was going on, it's kind of embarrassing, even though they're my friends and I know that they know that nothing happened. Still, there's just this dark cloud that kind of hangs over you. And I just remember thinking, what if you get found? Like, what if the allegation is found substantiated? What if they're like, you're guilty of this? Would it have been worth it to you to ruin your reputation for these kids? Would that have been worth it to you? And it was like a rhetorical question. Of course it would have been worth it. Like, could I sacrifice my reputation to take care of these kids? In a heartbeat. I don't care about my reputation. You can take my reputation. I don't care what anybody else thinks about me. If I can continue, or if I can, even just for a few moments, bring ease to these kids and take care of these kids and give them that love and that nurturing, would I sacrifice my reputation for that? Absolutely, I would. And that process of realizing what you're willing to sacrifice for the thing, and that process of sort of like weeding through all of this junk and really coming back to your pure intention of just doing something for the sake of Allah. That was what made me really start thinking about taking on one more child, because I just kept thinking, I just want to do this more. I just want to do this deed more. I just want to do it as much as I can. The thing about fostering is that with so many deeds, if you want to do something, you just go do it, right? Like if you want to pray or you want to fast or most deeds, I know like if you want to go for Hajj and Umrah, there's like some obstacles. But with fostering, like with taking care of these children, it is not so simple. It's not so direct, you know. Um, I remember when we got licensed and I was waiting for the call for our first placement, and it felt like I was waiting forever. And I just was asking Allah, please let me be worthy of doing this deed. Like, raise me up and make me worthy of doing this deed and give me the opportunity to do it. And I feel like with fostering, it's just one of those things where just because you want to do it doesn't mean that you get the opportunity to do this deed. So I appreciate it and I don't take it for granted. And I want to do it as much as I can. And alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. After 30 days, I actually got a phone call. I got a phone call from one of the women who came to the house to investigate. And it was really funny because she was like, you could tell she was trying to get it done in the 30 days. She was like, I still need to speak to your oldest son, but I'm trying to clear this out for you. And just the way she said it, I was like, oh, does that mean that it's clear? Does that mean that it's like not an issue anymore? So I didn't hear back from her. She did talk to my son. I texted my son. I said, she's going to call. Make sure you pick up and be very charming, charismatic, and funny. And make sure she likes you and you leave a good impression. He was like, no problem. Anyway, so alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, the allegation got cleared. To this day, I have no idea what the allegation was about. I did not get anything in writing. I did not see the report. I was told that I would get a letter. I have not received the letter, but my agency called me and let me know that the allegation has been no, it's not unsubstantiated. There was no merit to it. And we are officially clear and back in everyone's good graces. And with that, we have been given permission to reopen our home, which we have done. And my agency knew that we were out of town. We've been out of town for the last couple of weeks. And we will see. I've been praying istikhara like crazy. And I'm just trusting that Allah will open any doors and close any doors, wherever there is goodness for us. And so I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if we're going to be able to get another child. I don't know if that's what is good for us. But if anything happens, I will let you all know. And that is the story of our first and last, inshallah, hopefully. That is the story of our allegation. And with that, if you benefited, if you're still here 38 minutes later, if you benefited from this video, I hope that you will give it a like. If you feel, if it, I should have polished this up. If you would like to share the khair, and you never know where a seed you planted will grow and blossom. If you feel so compelled, please share this video. Alhamdulillah, I really appreciate the feedback that I've been getting. Please feel free to leave comments, but I appreciate all of the feedback that I've been getting, even the DMs that I've been getting on Instagram. All right, and with that, I will see you all next time. Maybe with some news. Who knows? Let's see.